Cyberpunk Edgerunners is probably the best piece of fiction I've seen in a long time. I'm a die-hard One Piece fan, but this series is incredible. This video is basically going to be explaining the Edgerunners series, and I'm going to mainly be focusing on David and Lucy. I think this anime is one of the most impactful ones I've watched in my entire life. I literally could not do anything after watching the series. I just sat in my car staring into nothingness, so I knew I had to make a video on it. So with that being said, let's get into it. Alright, there are two things I want you to remember before watching this video. Number one, you are not special. Nobody is an exception. Alright, you are not him. Number two, you don't make a name for yourself as a cyberpunk by how you live. You make a name by how you die. These are two things I need you to remember for the remainder of the video. When the series starts, you immediately dive into the world of Cyberpunk, and for anyone who's played the game, this is probably incredible to see because while the game has a lot of bugs and glitches, the one good thing about Cyberpunk was always the world building. I think that the concept behind the game is really impressive. I really do enjoy it, and even when the game did have a lot of bugs, that was the one thing I did like about it, like the actual concept of the game. So it's good to see it in an anime format. We meet David Martinez and his mother, and it looks like another teen drama where David doesn't fit in with his rich classmates, yada yada yada. But then, in the middle of the first episode, she is killed in front of David's eyes. The trauma team doesn't even bother to help because she is not a paid client. This scene will be important later because, as I said before, nobody is special. David quickly becomes an emotional wreck, and his classmate Katsuyo proceeds to bully him to the point that David decides to chrome up using military-grade tech and implement the sand devastin into his body. This will be the second step to David losing his humanity. After defeating Katsuo, David is met by an edgerunner named Lucy, who also serves as the main character to the series along with David. She saves him from a rogue EMT, and this is when David starts to develop an attraction. After doing a small job in the train, David becomes close to Lucy, and they talk about the concept of dreams. I believe dreams are an important concept when it comes to anime because dreams kind of drive the character's motivations. And One Piece is a great example because it wouldn't be One Piece without the concept of dreams. David's dream is to be an edgerunner, and they're basically like cyber gangsters, and he basically wants to live a glorious life, a lot of grandeur and all that stuff. Lucy reminds him that cyberpunks are remembered by how they die, not by how they live. When David learns Lucy wants to go to the moon, he questions it. And it may not be the best place on Earth, but it's still Lucy's dream, as long as she can escape Night City. She tells him that he must live for his own dream and not for his mother's. This concept of dreams will carry on throughout the series. Luffy shows David a brain dance, which is basically like augmented reality. David and Lucy share a moment, and Luffy reveals that David is the only person she has told about this, which shows that just like David, Lucy is feeling attraction to David. The scene is cut short when David wakes up from the brain dance and realizes that Lucy has sold him out to other edgerunners. We meet Maine, Dorio, and Pilar, and this is where we learn that Lucy is part of their squad, and they're the exact people David wants to be like, especially Maine. We eventually learn more about the crew and meeting other members like Rebecca and Kiwi. After doing more street work with the punks, David is finally a fully fledged member of the team, and it feels like things are finally coming together. We even get this cool shot with all the team and they're walking together. This looks like a really good ensemble, and then boom! Just like that, reality sets in again. It almost feels deliberate on the director and the animators because right after such a cool shot of the crew, one of them dies a pointless death. David's reaction is reflective of the viewers watching at home, and this will be another step into David losing his humanity. At the end of the fight, David once again is falling over the edge by killing the cyber psycho in order to save Lucy, making this David's first official kill, right? And he sees a flashback of his mother, which again shows that as David gets closer to being, a murderer and just falling off the edge, the closer he loses himself. We later get more interactions between David and Lucy, which further solidifies their bond, and we get to understand more about Lucy as a person. After a mission gone wrong, David is put into a psychotic brain dance where he undergoes even more trauma. Maine, who is the original leader of the gang, is undergoing cyber psychosis, which I will explain later. And in his final stand, he dies alongside Dorio, his love interest, and David witnesses once again that there are no happy endings in this city, which again goes along with rule number one. Now, this is a good segue into the topic of cyber psychosis. Now, the simple definition is basically someone who goes insane after too many cybernetic implants, but according to the Edgerunner wiki, those who are less empathetic or physiologically stable are more susceptible to the outcomes. So basically, people with already ongoing conditions are going to be more susceptible to it, and people who have a greater mental capacity or mental tolerance are going to seem special, kind of like David, right? So David thinks he's special, and we all do too because the main character is always special, but even a legend like David will meet the same fate as everyone else. Arasaka takes special interest in him for being able to tolerate a lot of chrome. This begins to feed into David's mind more and more after the time skip, and we see that he is bigger and looking a lot more like Maine, and this symbolizes that David David is living for Maine now as well as his mother. Even now he has his mother's ashes in his house and he's on a mission to be just like Maine. So again, this ties back to Lucy telling David to follow his own dreams. However, what Lucy does not seem to understand is that David's dream was to be an edgerunner. He's already fulfilled his purpose in life. This is all David has ever wanted. But once again, just when things seem to be going well, David starts showing symptoms of cyberpsychosis. Later on, we see David getting a job from a fixer, and we found out Faraday has been working with Kiwi to betray the crew. After kidnapping Lucy, Faraday is able to convince David to put on the cyber skeleton. Lucy eventually shakes loose and tells David that she is in danger, and after destroying an entire Militech fleet, David proceeds to head straight to Arasaka with the cyber skeleton to take back Lucy. David and his crew eventually make it to Arasaka and are able to save Lucy after a brief showdown with Adam Smasher. As they fall from the sky, Lucy tries to keep David from going insane. This again shows that Lucy and David do have a strong connection. She's the only one who can bring him back from the edge, keeping him human. And David makes it back to reality, and then he gets Lucy and drags her back to the team while being chased down by Adam Smasher. He tells Falco the driver to do him one last favor. So as Adam Smasher continues to rampage and kill everyone in his path, Falco makes a break for it with Lucy while David tries to stop the Smasher. Falco tells Lucy that David is sorry he can't go to the moon with her, and that David is dying in order to protect her. So this is honestly where the depression kicks in. I honestly wanted to cry, but I was in a parking lot when I watched the ending, so I had to hold back the tears. But anyways, this dude Adam is the perfect enemy for David and for the viewers. One of the reasons Adam is so easy to hate is because he perfectly encapsulates the theme of Night City and beats it into each and every one of us. David continues to believe he is special, but we'll learn in this fight that nobody is special, not even Adam Smasher, who was actually the closest to being special in the entire world, but even he has lost his humanity. He's basically just a functioning psychopath, so this would be David's inevitable fate. Even if he were somehow resilient enough to become like Adam, he would just be another psycho, which is why Adam offers to build him as a construct. He declines the offer and is content with his life that he lived. Alright, now it's time to talk about the ending. I've heard many different opinions on the ending of the series, but here's my opinion. That shit was one of the most depressing endings I've seen in my entire life. But that actually makes it perfect. Rule number 1, you are not special. Nobody is an exception. This rule is emphasized heavily throughout the story, and even through David, the main character. David died protecting Lucy and kept his promise to send her to the moon. Even in the end, he was able to retain his humanity on his last dying breath. So in a way, you could say David had a perfect death, but in hindsight, he died like every other cyberpunk eventually does. So that is one of the two most important themes of the series. Now let's talk about rule number 2. You don't make a name as a cyberpunk by how you live, you make a name by how you die. One thing we must consider is how Lucy remembers David when she's on the moon. She is not remembering the bulky time skip David or the cyber skeleton form of David. The David she holds in her heart is the organic David she first met. So Lucy was right about rule number 1, but David also kind of proved her wrong because she said cyberpunks will only be remembered by their death, but now she will always remember David by how he lived, not just how he died. So that, in my opinion, is why Edgerunners is the best series of the year. I haven't seen any other series on Netflix that came out this year, or in recent years actually, that has impacted me this much. Like, Netflix has had some really good shows. I have to look into Arcane and some other stuff, but Netflix has had some good stuff. But this series, I don't know what it is, man. Like, it just really reels you in and you just want to see more of it. But yeah, that's all I got for today. So definitely check it out on Netflix. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.